Hey guys, so thank you and thank you for listening, and it is my pleasure to separate you from your afternoon coffee, so stick with me here. I always notice that failure stories are so much more entertaining than success stories, so boy do I have some for you today. One second. Give me a... No. Oh, we went way too far. Here we go. So all of this begins, so the stories I'm telling, not necessarily about eDynamic, but just some experiences I had in the past. And this story begins with me. It's a cold November day, and I'm on a Zoom call, skip level one-on-one for the first time with the most senior software engineer we have from the team we acquired about a year before. And the goal of this conversation is to tell them that we are merging our technical teams. And he tells me it's terrible. We are here to destroy his culture. They were a family company. He thinks of his coworkers as family. And we're evil corporate overlords that came to destroy them. And we're here to literally destroy everything they hold dear. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be a culture destroyer. That's a really, really hard label to overcome. I did actually know one CTO who actually thought that Cortez was their personal hero, and he wanted to burn the ships and all that stuff. I'm not one of those people, so for me it was really hard to hear. So how did we get there? And one thing we didn't do is integrate early. So as technology leaders, we hear the whole shift left thing all the time. Finding bugs early in software development process, so all security in the infra conferences telling us to shift left. But on the other hand, when we are thinking about processes and humans, we for some reason stall. We think measure twice, cut once. Let's leave this alone. Maybe the problem will go away. Or maybe, just maybe, if we don't integrate early, we won't break what's already working. So there is a ton of research done in, ultimately, integration frameworks. This particular framework is almost 40 years old. And what those frameworks are telling us, that integration actually may be even unnecessary. Hey, if we have big cultural incompatibility, maybe we shouldn't integrate at all. Maybe we should keep those things separate, and it's going to be OK. Well, research in other areas is telling us that if, for example, even looking at animals, we have animals introduced early to each other have such bigger success actually becoming cohabitating and so forth. So how do we solve that conflict? So we actually didn't. We didn't integrate for a year. And what it did, it built massive resentment between two parts of the team. The team we acquired was thinking that the other team are evil corporate overlords. And of course, the original team was thinking of the acquired team as kind of being in a corner and having their own thing, and nobody liked each other very much. So the other things that I've noticed, they're calling us corporate overlords. And it's a very robotic idea of who we are. And I was like, well, what's the most human thing we can do? The most human. So I was like, the most human image in the world is the old cat lady, covered in fur, a little bit discombobulated. But people, if they relate to you and actually have this empathy and see me as a human instead of the evil robot that's there to kill them, maybe that's going to work. And it did. That piece actually did. So all of a sudden, people started bringing their pets into all the meetings. All the releases were named after their animals. It was actually really fun. People started trusting each other. There is a non-work-related conversation happening between the teams. It's really, really great. But, and the whole thing is that using pets, or cats specifically, as a way to humanize yourself is not a novel idea at all. Multiple people did this, and sometimes very successfully and sometimes not successfully. I did pick cats because, warm, nurturing, really cool animals. Relatable in all cultures, worshipped in Egypt, loved in Japan, Instagrammable worldwide, all of those things. So it's really did work extremely well. It obviously doesn't have to be cats, but there's also some examples of this failing horribly. Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos, she had a dog named Balto that she called a wolf, and it did not help her image whatsoever, and so forth. So we did go too far with the cats. I will tell you that right now. And what happened is that people did start using cats as a distractor. They started suggesting technologies based on images of the cats on the company logos. I also started to be that open door policy went way too far, and I started getting bugged continuously about everything because I was the friend. I was a cat lady. Cat lady is very approachable. So I do suggest really exercising this with caution because it can really backfire. So the other things that we have, so when I'm talking to the software engineer and we start talking like, oh, you're saying I'm killing your culture. So tell me about your culture. What is that culture? And he's like, oh, it's family. I'm like, well, that's good. But what is it? And we start digging in deeper. And he's like, well, we really care about our customer. We don't want any bugs. I'm like, well, that's fair. We do too. Here's the stuff we do to, our tactics are completely different. Our tools are different. Our processes are different. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a very similar thing. Productivity. We care about, engineers being happy and productive. And that's what he's telling me. I'm like, yeah, we do too. And so forth. So we go through all of that. And at the end of the day, we're like, actually, we're way more aligned than you think. A few people today mentioned that, they hire for culture. And that's the most important thing they have in new hires is the cultural alignment. But what if you can't hire people? The people came through acquisitions, through other sources. Do you just fire them automatically and move on? Hopefully not. And I think that really digging deeper what that culture really means can be extremely helpful. So, by the way, I'm just going to pause here. Who wants to guess what that image represents? Come on, anybody? That's cats learning Vim. Right, so just thought it would be good to put it in here. So that software engineer I'm talking about, he actually ended up being a massive influencer for me and the original team. He was extremely connected in his sub-organization. And after we had way more than just one talk, let's be real, he actually became our spokesperson. He actually spread that culture and became that massive connection between what we were representing and that part of the organization. And those influencers, they're not necessarily senior management. That's not who you want to get. You want to get people who are in the trenches, who set the tone. What I've noticed, those people usually are the ones that post personal updates on Slack or in a remote team or talk about themselves because they're actually really connected into the culture themselves. And they are connected to not just software engineers, but to other people in a company, in other roles, to spread that culture. So that was really great. So so he became a massive, massive influencer for us on this. And after that, we just need to trust that it's going to continue, and what your message is going to get spread that way. So a couple of things that we did learn is, again, integrating early, waiting only creates massive, massive issues. We are really making yourself more relatable because that automatic, more robotic view of who you are, of a corporate overlord or a big boss that came in from the big company can really hurt your image and prevent people from wanting to be part of your organization, and also aligning values, going deeper into what those values are, not just stopping at like, I value code reviews. Who cares? Why are you doing code reviews is the question. What's behind them to really bring that out and really align on that, and the tactics will kind of follow, and you figure out how to merge them together. And finally, finding and trusting your influencers. So who are going to be those people you trust in a new organization who can help you to explore or learn about their, how they do things, and really bring those two cultures together. And again, when I'm talking about bringing two cultures together, this is not one culture absorbing another. It's actually merging two cultures and having both cultures well represented. So we do have a ton of time for questions, because I talk very fast when I'm on stage. So if you have Slidos, please do. It would be really cool. Cultural clashes surprise me, yes. So that's one of them. One of the acquisitions we had, they really believed in manual testing. Very, very, very much. And they covered it with an idea that we believe in quality. And to me, it was probably one of the hardest things to overcome, because to me, manual testing at the end, it's QC, it's not QA. And quality comes from, from the source, let's put it this way. So that one was probably the biggest one, especially because how it was positioned is you don't believe in quality because you don't have manual testing at the end of the project. So that was really a difficult one. Actually, this is a really great question because it's hilarious. The team we acquired was bigger than our original team. How about that? But they saw us as corporate overlords, which I think is really funny. People don't think about it that way for some reason. The company we acquired existed for about 2 decades before the original company I was working for that acquired was around for probably a decade and a half. Where's a line where things need to be in the same description? So I think that tooling alignment will help eventually, because what we've noticed also over time is that we do have separate teams for different products, is that we want to move people around once in a while. And of course, if you have completely different processes and completely different tooling, it becomes more problematic. That being said, there's definitely, when you're acquiring a company, you don't necessarily in control of the technologies you already have, so you might end up with like 50 different languages. I think we've all been there. So there's definitely, thoughtful kind of process of like what tools make sense with that tech. I think over time, as you kind of overcome stages of that integration, you introduce new tools and pull out the old ones. I think the longest we had, we were migrating to, we actually wanted to move somebody to GitHub for reasons, and it took like maybe 6 months, so it's longer than I would want it to be, but we wanted to make sure it's gentle and people get used to new tooling and whatnot. So did you have to do a riff? So sorry, guys, I don't know what riff is. How do I do that? Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, we did not. We actually kept everybody, which was great. But it's possible that people would leave during that time or lose their jobs. I'm very fortunate because we're in a company where we ultimately don't outsource our development work, and we're a very lean development team, and I don't think losing an engineer is something we would ever want, quite frankly, but I totally see how it could be extremely hard. We had a person retire during one of the layoffs, and it definitely had a morale hit, weirdly, because he was a big influencer, but weirdly, I think we should have let that person go before he retired. Because when I talk about that split, he was at the helm of that split feeding fairly negative information about the other company into the mix. Well, I think that to determine that it's actually a merger again. So when we look at, I mentioned PMI frameworks before. I will try to rewind to some of them. I can't, whatever. So there's a bunch of different PMI frameworks. And some of them would talk about, hey, this is a really old one and was backed up by many, many people. And ultimately, that in some cases, you don't actually want it to be a merger, because if your cultural compatibility is fairly low and autonomy is high, and you try to actually merge things together, what would happen is what happened, for example, with AOL and its multi-billion-dollar loss ultimately, and you really don't want this. So in my opinion, when it comes down to kind of merging cultures, like what do you actually like about the culture? What are the kind of the key pillars of that cultures that you're going to merge? And seeing how you can preserve them. So it doesn't necessarily preserve in their tooling or their processes, but really identify what do they care the most about? What is the most important thing for people in that team? And for this specific one, and there's others for sure, but for this specific team, they really, really cared about their perceived view of the quality of the products they're making and how customers view them. That was the most important thing, and they didn't want to lose it. Well, I can give you guys 5 minutes back because you get to, enjoy your break early. So thank you.